Hello and welcome to my first lecture on the journey to becoming an SPSS expert. In today's video, we're going to be examining how to define variables using SPSS. And for this lesson, we're going to create a fictitious dataset involving 5 main variables: age, gender, 2 separate items, one asking how often do you drink alcohol on a 5-point Likert scale. Here you can see what those 5 points represent, so 1 being never, 2 not often, 3 sometimes, 4 often, and 5 all the time. And then another item which asks how often do you drink coffee, also on the same 5-point Likert scale. And finally, for each individual, there's going to be a report on their salary in US dollars. So now we're going to go into SPSS, and when you open up SPSS, you're just going to have this blank data view, and as you can see, the variables are just named var. So you've got these columns which represent different variables. They've got no instruction at the moment, but we're going to do that now. And here each row would represent a new case. So now we're going to go down into variable view. I always recommend that your first variable be called ID. ID representing, so each new row in the dataset will be a new individual that will have its own individual ID. So our first main variable was age. So we're just going to put age in there. And then gender. And the next one's about drinking alcohol. So we'll just put drink alcohol for now in the variable name. The next one is drink coffee. And finally, salary in US dollars. So now if we go into our data view, you can see that the variable names at the top there have changed to reflect what we have just entered into the variable view, which is a good start. So what we're going to do now is we're going to enter in some fictitious data. So here for the ID, we're just going to simply do 1 down to 8. So we're going to have 8 different individuals. And then we're going to make up some ages. Obviously, in your experiment, you'll be putting in the correct data that you've collected through your experiment. And here in gender, so I'll show you in a minute what we're going to do with this, but 1 is going to represent male, and 2 is going to represent female. And drinking alcohol. So if somebody drinks, remember on that Likert scale, if they drink it all the time, they're going to be a 5. So this first guy is going to be a heavy drinker. The next one never drinks. Sometimes. We're just going to change those and make a bit of a variety here. And for drinking coffee, in our data set, individuals are heavy coffee drinkers for the most part, apart from this guy at the bottom. And then salary, so okay. Okay, so we've got these data points for our 8 participants all entered nicely. So now we're going to go into variable view to make this more tidy, and so that all of the information in the variable view accurately reflects the data that we've inputted. So we're going to start with ID. So the type of data that ID is numeric. in comparison to all of these other ones here. But we're going to change the decimal places to 0. You can either do that in the box that we just opened under type, or you can do it here under the variable there, decimals. Label. So it's always a very good habit to put a very accurate label in this field, because this is what gets reported in your SPS output. So you want it to sound professional, so you don't have to make these adjustments later on. So I'm going to write identification number, and then age. So I'm just going to go down all of these now. So here, the difference between the name and the label is the name is just a short indicator for the data view here, so drink alcohol. But in the variable view, we want to change the label so it represents the whole item. So we're going to call this how much alcohol do you drink? And I'm just going to make an extra note here. So you see under this label we can put spaces between the words. That's okay. But under the name of the variable there cannot be any spaces or special characters. So now if I try to put a space between drink and alcohol and click enter, we'll get this error message saying that the variable name contains an illegal character. But when we initially did it, we did it as drink alcohol, both of the words combined. There was no illegal characters, so SPSS accepted that name. And then for the label of drink coffee, so how much coffee do you drink? And salary. What is your salary in US dollars? Okay, so now we're gonna first go and fill in all of the fields one by one for each of the variables. So we'll start with age. Age is a numeric variable. Width we can leave to 8, that gives it plenty of room. Decimals, we don't want any decimals for age. Now that we've changed that to 0, as you can see in the age, it's represented as whole numbers now in the data view. We haven't changed the decimals for the other variables yet, so they've still got these 2 decimal places. Values. Values only has to be entered for categorical data, so we can leave that as none. There's no missing values. And the measure for age exists on a scale. So I'm just going to give you some definitions now of these different measures, which will be helpful. So a scale measure is either interval or ratio. Interval is a quantitative variable without a fixed origin. So for an example of this would be temperature. When we say it has no fixed origin, if you've got a temperature of 0, it doesn't mean that there's no temperature, it just means that it's very cold. Whereas a ratio is quantitative with a fixed origin. So here, salary would be an example of ratio. A salary of 0 would mean that the person isn't bringing in any income. So the 0 has a fixed origin. Ordinal. Ordinal is the type of measure for our 2 items, which is how much coffee do you drink or how much alcohol do you drink, and it's ordinal because it's a variable with order, categorization and order. 1, if somebody has a 1, it means never, or if they have 5, it means all the time. So there's an order to the data that is collected. Nominal is categorical. So in our example, gender is a nominal variable. So now we've cleared that up, we can safely say that age is a scale measure. In fact, it is a ratio, because age does have a fixed value. So now we'll go down to gender. So gender, we'll just put that to 0 decimals. And gender here for values, we do have to amend this because it's a categorical, or which also means nominal variable. So the values here, a value of 1 is going to mean male, and 2 means female. We'll just click OK there. And here we'll change this to nominal. And the next one is our drinking alcohol item. It's numeric, the data is numeric in nature. We don't want any decimals. We do have to change the values because a value of 1 has a meaning, a value of 5 has a meaning, etc. So a value of 1 here means never. A value of 2 means not often. A value of 3 means sometimes. A value of 4 means often. And 5 is all the time. Okay. So what we can do is, because the next item is on the same 5-point Likert scale, we can actually copy and paste that information to save time into the next values box. So you see there, that's exactly copied and pasted from our previous variable. And then here in the measure, it's ordinal in nature. From what we just went through in the presentation, PowerPoint, it's ordinal because the values are in order. So if somebody puts a 1, it means never, and if they respond a 5 on the Likert scale, it means all the time. And the next one is also ordinal. And finally, salary. So if we go back to the PowerPoint now, as we can see, salary is represented in US dollars. Okay, so in type, what we're going to do is we're going to put this into dollar. So dollar is the currency. And you see here on the right hand side in the box there, it shows all of these hashtags. And what this means is, how is the information going to be represented in the data point? And so in all of our data points, if we just go back now, so the salaries range from 29,000 up to 61,000. So what we're going to do is go back down to dollar, and because it's in the thousands, I think it would be nicely represented like this. So it'd be, say if it's 69,000, it would have a 69,000. We don't want any decimal places, and we'll just click OK. So now if we go into data view, you see how it looks a lot neater. There's now dollar signs and commas to show that it's in the thousands. It just looks a lot neater there, doesn't it? Okay, so we don't need to specify any particular values because it's not ordinal or categorical there. There's no missing values, and the unit of measurement here is scale. It's very important to put the correct units of measurement because it will help in later analyses to make sure that your analysis that you run are accurate. So now if we go into the data view, we can see that it's all reflected nicely. You've got good variable names at the top there. All the data points are uniform. It's very visually aesthetic and it's easy to read. And then if you go on the top here and you see this button A to 1, this shows you what the value labels are. So if you click that, it will show you, instead of 1s and 2s, it will show you male and female. And instead of the 1 to 5s, it shows you that this person drinks all the time or often. So it's often a good way to visually see your data in a different way. So there we have it. We have looked at defining variables in SPSS. If you have any additional questions or you want me to clear up a bit more into defining variables, then please feel free to comment in the comments section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. If not, then I hope you really like this video and continue watching through the series to ultimately become an expert in SPSS. And I would really appreciate it if you subscribed, because you can follow through this journey and hopefully gain a lot from this channel. Thank you very much for watching.